Hello and welcome to my evidence record for the version 7.13. Okay, opening it up, first thing that you'll find is it asks for the administrator password. So at this point, the password is admin, capital A-D-M-I-N. You have the ability, of course, to change that to your liking, but I would check on Excel on how to do that. The only way you're going to get in, though, is if you've enabled macros. If you haven't done that at this point in time, please be sure to watch the video that I'll also have a link to on the course webpage, the evidence record webpage. So the first thing I usually do is enter the course code and details at the top here on the first page. Notice we're on tab class marks. Most of the work you do will be in this tab. So some random course code, teacher name, of course, room number, and period. Again, the course code here. There's not too much doubling of details, so school name, something just arbitrary. Now I'll just be making some fake student names here. Now the best way to get your student names is to copy and paste special. To demonstrate that, I would go to a student database to find your names and cut and paste them. But again, pasting special. So just to demonstrate what that looks like, I'm going to put a name that might be in, let's pretend it was in a database here, and it was, I don't know, Green, Dallas. So if this was in a database in some spreadsheet, you could highlight it, copy, and of course, copying all your names, you go over to the cell, right-click, paste special, and choose values. The reason why you're going to want to choose this over pasting is that it won't get rid of your formatting. You can see the slight difference in the paste below. So paste values will maintain the formatting. I always advise doing paste specials through. Okay, I'm just going to modify this person's name to be something else. So let's make the student's name Awesome John. So John is somebody that's excelling in your class. We all know that student. And this one's going to be not so good. Bill. And let's just do Mrs. Class. Wilma. Okay, so these three students we kind of get a sense of. And I'll just maybe put one more, average Joe. Okay, so after you've put in your student names, you'll notice what happens right away is there's a printable recording sheet. This is kind of matching what you would have in your records, but you can see you don't have to re-enter things like the course codes here, the names of the students, you have date, expectation, and out of, the names of the assignments. So you can have a record being kept. Sometimes I print these out for attendance and whatnot. Just choosing file and print, you'll see that makes a nice version of the document to be printed. So I just would like to show that to you. So this is what it would look like on an 8.5 by 11. Okay, the next thing is to recognize that there's also the ability to use a marks calculator. Now this has no effect whatsoever. If you don't want to use this, that's understood. But you might at times have a test that's out of 50 marks or 40 marks, and you're just trying to figure out what the percentage is. So if they got, 34 out of 40, well now you know the percentage is 85 and the level is 4 minus. This really saves time from you having to work too much on, sorry, I shouldn't be putting in values that are above 40, of course, so let me just change that, and I'll try to match these. So Awesome John, let's say he gets 40 out of 40. Not so good Bill, maybe got 20 out of 40. Mrs. Class Wilma, well, she's actually Miss Class, so let's just say she didn't have a mark in. Okay, so we'll leave it blank. And then average Joe, we'll just put 30 out of 40. So you can see the averages coming up now. Now, typically what I'll do is I'll capture these percentages by highlighting them, copying, going back to class marks, where basically this is where my marks should go, right-clicking and pasting special again the values. Now those values went in there, but there's really no meaning to them. It's expecting that we have a name for each assignment, and the cell beside it that will have a level that automatically populates. Here you're going to use codes such as T1 for test 1, Q1 for quiz 1, A2 assignment 2, L3 for lab 3, for instance. This is where you enter a date in that format there. This is where you're going to enter a weight for an assignment. The examples are shown there. So I'll just be honest. If you have a weight here, it's going to look a little bit different below. So let's just arbitrarily set a weight of 100. Weights are arbitrary, and that is in your professional judgment to choose the value. You'll notice down here, Wilma's expecting a grade to be entered. This will remain highlighted for you to recall that she has missed the test, and until she writes it, it's going to assume that that's actually a value of 0. If there was a valid reason for her to miss it, you may want to put an E, which would negate this from being included in Wilma's mark overall. A mark of 0 can be entered, which we'll be looking at on the evidence record as an I. If you just, again, want it to be looking as if nothing was there, but still counting as a 0, leave it blank. There's really no option to do anything else besides that. You're always going to enter a percent here, but I'll just take you through the course here. So like 35, we're going to see that as an R. Something in the 20 range is R minus. 40 is R plus. 50, which is going to be 1 minus. 55, 1, and so on and so forth. All the way up the chain to level 4, you're probably wondering. So if you get an 80, you get 4 minus. 88 is the first time you're going to see 4, I think. Let me just double check that. No, 87 is. Yeah. Even 86.9, just so you're aware, will still, it does do a little bit of rounding there. So 86 looking like is the cutoff point. Okay. 92, you're going to see as a 4. All the way up to 95. With a 95, you're going to have a level 4 plus. Again, 94.5 will round this, and you're going to get a round up value of 4 plus. So something that precise is going to be rounded to the nearest percentage. Okay, let's put an arbitrary name for this assignment in. So we'll call it a test. Say on multiple functions. The code might be T1 for test 1. The date maybe January 1st. You can see automatically it's going to reformat that. Now what does this do? Well, nothing is going to show up on their, let me just take you over here. So you can see there's a bunch of tabs at the bottom. The main ones are the student evidence records that are being populated, and that's the most important thing that this thing does. I'm just going to head over to student 1. You'll see there's something missing. It does automatically populate that. It does put a grade in for you, in fact, for it, and it shows the 4 plus over here, auto formats. It's not going to show a level or a percentage right now because we actually haven't put weights in for the bin. So I'm just going to take you back to see that. So back to the class marks tab. And I'm just going to take you through all of the bins that are available. So this is maybe strand 1 with expectations A1, A2, A3, and A4. It's up to you whether you want to combine some of them or not. Strand B, different color for that bin. Strand C, strand D, and it's up to you if you want to modify these. There's nothing saying you can't change the order. I usually do things in the order that I teach them so that they come up on the evidence record in a sequential manner. And then over to the far right on the class marks tab, there is a place for you to enter the bin weight for this strand. So this is the percentage out of 70% that you're going to make it worth. So let's just say that it's worth, I don't know, 20% for strand A. As we come along, we'll put in weights for these, but I wouldn't put them in now because it's going to expect that grades are entered for those students, and if they're not, well, you can put those in here, but it's not going to do anything until there's marks in there. Okay. Of course, the summative in the exam may come up later. So if I put a 15 in here, then you have a way of putting in marks for the student that will change their overall marks. So let's just say the grade student gets 100 on their summative, and overall they're getting 100. So if they get 95 on their summative, you can see it's doing the trade-off between this one being worth 15% or 15 out of the total of 35 right now. Just so you know, that's very um, much off. If this was their grade, if this was their term mark out of 70, you had 15 here for this and 15 here for this. That's going to total up to 100. Let's put in an exam mark of 90, let's say. You can see 100, 95, and 90 total up to 97.8. You're probably wondering what happens with students that miss assignments and miss quizzes, so I'll just demonstrate that with Wilma. So Wilma, we have, let me just go back to the beginning where we were putting in the marks. Wilma here is going to miss her first one, but maybe she makes a quiz. Quizzes, whether you count them or not, is up to you. If you leave this blank, they won't count. Even putting a 0 will mean the same thing. By putting in a weight, though, like a 10, you don't want the quiz to take over from a test, but let's say Wilma made the quiz and did amazingly on it. This won't look so good because all you'll have is the 100. So essentially, this is going to be bad unless there's another mark to go off for Wilma. Let's see, Awesome John, let's give him a Navy on that. Not so good Bill, he's failing that quiz. And Average Joe is getting 70 all the way on. Okay. Now you'll notice the bin total is 110, so that's something over here that has totaled itself up. But Wilma here hasn't actually done the test. So by leaving it blank, you have essentially given her 0 on that test. I would suggest if she has a valid excuse that she's missed that test, and I would never base a person's mark on solely a quiz, so you should obviously have her write that test, but if for whatever reason, maybe she was sick or she didn't come to class in the right period of time, so by putting the E, you'll notice what happens is that it takes the consideration of 10 out of the 110 for her. Now she has a mark of 100 still, if you just consider her term mark here, which makes sense. So she's not being affected because it was a valid excuse that you had for her. Over here to the right, if she gets, it's saying 70 here because she doesn't have her summative mark in. So once she writes her summative, maybe she's going to she misses it, but she doesn't miss her summative, of course. Nobody's allowed to. So now she's getting a 90 with the quiz and the summative task in the exam. You can see these are taking up 30, and it seems appropriate that the quiz right now is quite substantially offsetting that, because truthfully, out of the 70%, it's only a quiz that you have from her. So just be aware what it does is it still makes this worth 70% for her, this bin. So there is some thinking to do on the part of the evidence record that we have to really judge these values ourselves. Okay? Okay, not so good. Got a 50 on his summative and a 70 on his exam. So he's barely passing. Oops. It was just me clicking the wrong button. Average Joe still getting his 60s, maybe a 68 here, and a 73 on this. Okay. Nice thing about this is it'll populate a graph based on the how the class is doing, and at the bottom you have for each of these entries an average, a median, and a mode for the class, and the total of the number of students in each category. And that goes for every single test that's entered. Okay. All of that is fine, but does it produce a nice evidence record, you're wondering? So I'll just go over here and put in student 1. So this is Awesome Joe. Populates his 2 things that we did for him, and you can see that the tests are coming up a little larger than quizzes. That's according to that code that was entered. You got your summative and your exam level, and now it's up to you whether you want to use this calculated grade that's coming out, or you can choose to hide the calculated grade, so you can use solely your professional judgment. But really, you're trying to assign a grade. So let's assume this is the midterm. I'm going to give this student, based on showing this calculated grade. Do I agree with this? Yeah, sure. Let's go with a 97. So we give a 97 for this student. And you go on to the next student looking at theirs. So as you do this, you're using your professional judgment. You got 53% maybe for the student. We're going to enter that as their midterm. It's not letting you type in other cells. Like it won't let you type in other cells. It's going to do a breakdown of the strands, offer some suggestions if you're going to print this evidence record out for them. I should just show you what that looks like if you go to print this out. So the active sheet looks like this on an 8.5 by 11. Okay. Let's go back. All right, so going through all my students now, it's obviously populating only the entries that are needed. These are, if something looks out of whack, you can always press these buttons and really check them out. The only things that are going to show up are things that that you've actually put weights to, though. Okay, so another one is 90% on this one. And for this student, you've got a mark of 73 or 74, let's say. Okay, going over student 5, there is no student 5. These are just ignored then, so there's no name for the student. So we're going to go back now and just see what that has done now for our class marks. So now that I've entered marks for these students, you'll see what's happened. Up here, back to our beginning student class, over to the right, we have a populated mark here now for their midterm. Now, what has that done? Well, I'll show you that in a second. I just have to let my dog out. Hold on. Okay, back again. All right, I was going to now show the new tabs that have been added. So at the bottom here, the printed recording sheets there for us again. Marks calculator, of course, is only allowing you to do simple things. Comments bank. Okay, so this is something that comes from the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. There's a whole bunch of codes that are associated to specific comments on the report card. And many of them have actual topics like geography, math, history. All of these are listed over here with a code. If your goal is to use these, you can still do that. I'm going to stop scrolling now because you can just see that I have a whole list. There's nothing preventing me from putting more of my own. So I'm going to put just custom one here. I'll say student has performed well on assignments. And I don't know why I capitalized assignments, but that's what custom one has. Of course, I'm going to spell custom one, right? Okay. Now, because I have that there in this list just below here, that'll be something maybe I copy and paste each time over if I use a new version of this evidence record next semester. The other thing it has the ability to do, which I have to go all the way back to the top so you can just see, is it has fields for auto comments, which are based on the values that are associated to their midterm or final grade. These flags allow you to either add a student's name to your comment, which is custom again, or leave it off. So I'm just going to demonstrate what that's done for our first student. So here, this is the bank. One over from that is where you're going to actually make your comments for the reporting purposes. So I'm going to click on this, and you can see the marks are here for my students, and I haven't had to do any work right now because the auto comments have been filling in for me what pertains to these students. So I have John has demonstrated a thorough understanding in ICS 3U. According to this, that seems appropriate. Bill, who's got not so good, Bill has demonstrated a limited understanding in ICS 3U. Bill is showing limited progress. Of course, being that these are custom, you wouldn't want this to be a report card comment, so you might change something for Bill to custom 1. And now you can see the second one is student has performed well on assignments. Choosing any code like you could before, you got 1, 2, 3, and a possible fourth one here to add if you like having a fourth comment. You don't have to do any, you can do only 3. To modify these, I would cut and paste this first and then modify in the program where you're to end up putting your comments. But this does save a lot of time at the end of the day. Rather than cutting and pasting, you've got some that automatically populate. And whether you choose to change them, that's up to you. Go to the comments bank. You can see why it's saying TBD is because I haven't put anything in here. the flags, whether you use them or not. So this is where I wouldn't maybe put a student's name, but for somebody that's failed course, or needs to seek help, at lunch. Okay, must self-advocate. 60 is showing signs of improvement. Looking very general. And for 70, seek to help others. And maybe another one where we know they're doing excelling. Seek enrichment opportunities. And now I'll just show you what that has done. So over here, we haven't had to do much work for the auto 3 comment. You've got seek enrichment opportunities for the gentleman here that does awesome. You must self-advocate for the student that's not doing so good. You got seek enrichment opportunities for the person that's missing class, but they're still getting 90, so whatever. And seek to help others. You got somebody like average Joe Citizen, seek to help others. Sounds good to me. I'm going to be using this to save me a lot of time. Down here, it's going to be different at the final comments because it's going to populate the midterm, but your comments are going to wait for your final mark now to be able to create those comments. It's not going to really look anything like we want until we have a final mark here. Okay, the class analysis page is just a one-pager. If you wanted to print it out, just show you what that looks like. So some people like to know the breakdown of the course and just what it is that's, you know, in this case, taking up the brunt of the course. So this is on an 8.5 by 11 sheet again. So we've got the breakdown of the course marks for that student in which strands they're in. And towards the bottom, you've got the mean, median for the different weights of things. And now this is the nice thing. You've got a breakdown of just how much was that test worth. Well, it was worth, out of the 70%, 63.64% of their grade. The quiz was worth 6.36% of the grade, and you had the summative, which was 15 to 15. So it's showing you the breakdown of the weights of things, which I think is very valuable in terms of expressing just what things are worth and transparent in this case, versus your willy-nilly version of looking at an evidence record and assigning a grade to somebody. No offense, but it's just not the way I do things. Okay, I believe that's it for now. And as more functionality is added, you're going to want to go to the course website. I'm just going to pull that up here. So let me take a look. So this is a location. I was just about to edit the link, but I'm just going to go to the bottom of this page and save it so you can see where is it that I go. I go to this link here to access all the instructions that pertain to the evidence record. How to enable macros. It's very important that you do this, otherwise the things like the auto formatting just will not work. Pulling in the marks into the evidence record are the main things that I do. And it also tells you what entries you can make. It shows you the range of what the level will show up on the evidence record. High for insufficient weights, printing, limitations, and what I haven't added in yet, but I will soon, is how to use the auto comment fields. Okay, thanks for listening.